morning, everyone, and welcome to our next presentation. Our next presenter is Monarca Minerals, Inc., and presenting on behalf of the company is President and CEO Carlos Espinosa and VP Exploration Michael Smith. Carlos, over to you.
Thank you very much, Derek. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending our presentation. It's a pleasure to be here. We're going to share information about our company. I'm going to move forward very quickly on this part because we are tight on time. But basically, what I want to mention before to pass the mic to Michael, who's our technical guy, we have three great assets in Mexico, gold and silver, in the states of Durango and Chihuahua. We recently raised $3 million on a private placement, and most of this money is going to be focused on the drilling program for San Jose. And Mike is going to talk a little bit more about that, but we want to take this opportunity to give you an update of where we are. It's important also to mention that Michael, our Executive VP of Exploration and QP, is a highly seasoned geologist, more than 40 years experience working in several countries, US, Mexico, Colombia, working for companies like Barrick Gold or Continental Gold. So we have a lot of experience in Mike, and we have a local team in Mexico also highly experienced that is helping us to develop these properties. Just to mention very quickly also the performance of our share. As I mentioned, we raised $3 million a couple of months ago, and we raised in that time at 5 cents. Currently, the share price is around 17 to 20 cents. Today in the morning was 17 cents or 17 and a half. So we have a great response from the market. We have a great asset. We have a very good team. So this is just the beginning of a very good story. We appreciate the support from current shareholders, and I'm sure this is going to be just the beginning of a greater story. We have a very balanced team on the board and management. I don't want to spend much time on this at this moment because of a matter of time, but we want to just pass the mic to Michael and let him to speak about our three assets. So, Mike, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Carlos. So I'm on the page 6 where we've got the project portfolio. This is a map that just indicates generally the locations of our projects. In the principal project, we're going to be immediately doing work on starting drilling early next year is the San Jose project. We have an option for 100% of it. It's a large property package, about 6,000 hectares. It's located only about 30 kilometers south of the border with New Mexico in the U.S. It's a very solid, easy area to work in, rolling hill country. And we have the 100% stake in the project. We've only looked at about 1,000 hectares in detail of the project, but it looks very promising. It's located very close to Peñoles' operating Bismarck mine, which is a similar mineralized system, except that in San Jose we have significant gold and silver grades at the surface. And we're planning a drilling program there to start with permitting in probably January of next year. There's been some delays in permitting because of COVID. Some of the governmental offices are shut down right now or temporarily suspended until the COVID reduces a bit. We also have two projects in Durango State. One is the Tahaman project. It's a 100% owned asset. It's a 1,700 hectare property. We do have a drilled resource there. It was drilling that was done in the 2004 to 2007 timeframe, and it's a resource of 29 million ounces of silver at an average grade of 45 grams per ton. And I'll get into a bit more detail on Tahaman later on in the presentation. We're particularly excited, let alone the extant resource that we have at Tahaman, is we've got high-grade feeder veins that have been identified through drilling, and we want to follow those down to depth at the base of the volcanic section where the current resource is hosted. We also have the San Lucas project, another 100% owned asset. It's very strategically located in elephant country. It's only 4 kilometers south of Argonaut Gold San Agustin Complex, which is a gold mine, heap leach production facility that's being put into production by Argonaut Gold. And we have two significant mineralized structures with gold and silver grades at the surface and a limited amount of historical drilling. Next slide, please.
Oops.
This is just a little bit more detail about our location. You can see that we're located, as I mentioned before, in the San Jose project, just south of the border with New Mexico. It's a property with easy access. There's an agricultural establishment, a small town about 15 kilometers to the east of where the mineralization outcrops at the surface, and we're only 50 kilometers northwest of the operating Bismarck mine. We entered into an option agreement to purchase 100% interest in the property for total cash payments of $150,000. The owners retain a 2% NSR, of which we can buy half of that back for a single payment of $100,000 if we get into production there. So the potential there is polymetallic mineralization associated with skarns, gossans, altered intrusive rocks. We see outcropping mineralizing intrusives and placed into carbonates, so we have significant skarn mineralization at the surface. There's been very limited mining that was done on the property in years past in the 1970s. That showed significant gold and silver grades along with lead mineralization. There's never been any drilling done on the property, so we've identified that based on the sampling that we did, that there's significant base metal and precious metal mineralization on the surface over a strike length of about 3 kilometers. So we decided to do geophysical work that I'll get into a little bit later in the next page, and it indicated a very large area, very strong IP anomalies associated with magnetic anomalies, and we're planning on, based on that geophysics, to do a drilling program of up to 10,000 meters starting early next year. Next slide, please. This slide is giving us a little bit more detail about the San Jose project. The image on the right is a cross-section through the Bismarck mine. It's basically a model for the exploration that we're doing at the property. The Bismarck mine is an operating mine, about 2,500 ton per day underground mining operation, and it was discovered back in the 1990s. By Peñoles. They saw limited, very narrow areas of mineralization at the surface, very similar to what we see at the San Jose project. And the cross-section on the right shows that. You can see in the upper portion of the image very narrow areas of mineralization at the surface, much like what we see at San Jose. The biggest difference is we have very significant precious metal grades associated with the mineralization we're seeing, and it's because we're up higher in the mineralizing system. So what Peñoles did is they did geophysics back in the early 90s and discovered strong IP anomalies and did drilling and drilled out an initial resource of 13 million tons of 52 gram per ton silver and 11% zinc and 0.4% copper with some lead. That's equal to about 350 gram per ton silver equivalent mineralization. So we see very similar style of mineralization in the San Jose project, where we have mineralizing intrusives producing skarns at the surface hosted in limestones. We see alteration in the intrusives and in the limestones that are very indicative of a large area of mineralization. When we first looked at the property 5 years ago, we were impressed that there's a significant area of surface mineralization that's never been drilled. And what we see at the surface is a lot of mineralized structures, skarn veins, jasperoids, other styles of mineralization that have significant base metal and precious metal mineralization. So we went into the project and geophysics about 2 years ago, and one of the significant things we see in the property, which is very similar to other projects that I've looked at over the years, where we see late stage overprinting silver and gold mineralization, overprinting the skarns and the mineralization that we see at the surface. So the next slide, please, Carlos, is a slide where we look at the surface geophysics. And that work was done, as I mentioned, about 2 years ago. On the right-hand side, you see a map of the property package. It's a large land package. The area where the oval is indicated is where we did our geophysics and most of our surface exploration. We see the mineralization extending to the southeast in this large land package, and that needs to be followed up on in future exploration, tracing this mineralized system to the southeast. The images in the lower left-hand corner are the results of the geophysics that we did. This was all based on the initial sampling we did, where we took 167 chip channel samples across mineralized structures in the area with a strike length of about 3 kilometers. And we had samples returning up to 9.5 gram per ton gold at the surface, 257 gram per ton silver, as well as base metal grades. The right-hand image for the geophysics was the magnetics, and it's indicating something important, and that is the bright red areas and pink areas are locations where we have very strong magnetic signatures, which are believed to be mineralizing intrusives that are associated with the mineralization we see at the surface. And so if you compare that to the IP image on the left, you can see areas with reds and pinks and yellows, which are very strong IP results, which are indicating sulfide mineralization at depth. So we see the classic combination of mineralizing intrusive rocks, and then above and around those mineralizing intrusives are the sulfides, which are indicated by the IP anomalies. And so our drilling is going to be focusing on following up on the IP anomalies, which we expect to be sulfide mineralization at depth. And the depths indicated by the geophysics is that the sulfide mineralization is on the order of 50 to 100 meters at the top and extends down to about 450 meters based on projections, based on the geophysics. So we're very optimistic about the qualities of the project. We've got a skarn and carbonate replacement mineralization at the surface. We've got the mineralizing intrusive, and we've got the IP anomaly, which provides us with drill targets. And so we're finalizing the work on the roads to be built, where the drill pads will be for the drilling. And we expect to go in there and drill initially about 5,000 meters of drilling in 9 or 10 holes along the strike length of the IP anomaly. And we'll be waiting for those results so that we can then follow up with additional infill drilling to determine the full extent of the sulfide mineralization that we expect to hit at the early stages of the drilling program. Next slide, please, Carlos. This slide is about the Tahaman project. As I mentioned, there is a resource there at a 15-gram cutoff. We have about 20 million tons at 45 grams per ton gold for a total resource of just under 29 million ounces. It's in an area that's readily accessible. It's located only about an hour and a half, 2-hour drive northwest of the capital city of Durango, and it's in an area that's fairly low relief. It's not steep mountainous terrain. We have about 1,700 hectares there, and it's an area with lots of agricultural development in the valleys to the east. And one of the important things that we saw early on in evaluating the deposit over the last few years is that we have very high-grade feeder veins underneath the surface mineralization, which is the 45 gram per ton resource. And these high-grade feeder veins can be quite high-grade. We have one intercept at 6 meters of 1,400 gram per ton silver with about 5% combined lead zinc. One of the things we're excited about, let alone following the high-grade feeder veins, which gave us the large superficial 45 gram per ton resource, is that where those high-grade feeder veins come into the base of the volcanic section, which hosts the current resource, we could have ponding and underneath the base of the volcanic section where those high-grade feeder veins enter into the volcanic section. And we're very hopeful and optimistic that we can have significant mantle-style mineralization at the base of the volcanic section. So it's a project with an existing resource. There's very strong and high-grade mineralization. And if we go to the next slide, Carlos, we have a little bit more detail about some of the mineralization that we see at Tahaman. In the upper right-hand corner is a map that shows the area where the current mineralization has been identified. we see that the Tahaman project has two portions, the Los Mantos portion and the Cerro Prieto portion. All of the points that you see are drill holes that have been done historically. Los Mantos is completely open to the south and to the east for the drilling of superficial mineralization, and the Cerro Prieto project is similar. Cerro Prieto is a northeast striking thick vein system, and in both of those locations, all of the drilling that has been done historically has been to a depth of about 200 meters. They were following up on the low-grade, potentially heap leachable mineralization that's hosted in the volcanics. And on the left-hand side, you can see there's a table of some of the drill hole results at Los Mantos. Some of those very high-grade intercepts like MMT 141, where we drilled 80 meters of 417 gram per ton gold. That's part of that high-grade intercept is one of the high-grade feeder veins. So the historical drilling that's been done was focusing on the shallow mineralization that exists at the surface to depths of about 200 meters. And the idea at the time was that this was an open pit mineable target with heap leachable mineralization at the surface. In many ways, it's very similar to Coeurs Rochester mine in central Nevada, where they are heap leaching open pit mined silver mineralization, and their feed grade that they're putting onto the leach pads is about 20 grams per ton. We're at about 45 grams per ton, and so we've got significant grades at the surface that show good amenability for cyaniding in a heap leach, and that's the lower right-hand table, which summarizes some of the test recoveries that we've got. But as I mentioned before, what we're really focused on now, just because we're concerned about limiting the surface disturbance at the Tahaman project, is these high-grade feeder veins, of which we have one major one in Cerro Prieto, and it looks like at least 4 of them in the Los Mantos project. So we hope to get in there next year and do some confirmation drilling through the shallow mineralization at the surface and extend those holes down to intercept those high-grade feeder veins at depths greater than 200 meters and towards the base of the volcanic section, where we're hopeful that we'll have significant manto-style mineralization. Next slide, please. The San Lucas project is located very close to the Tahaman project. It's only about 60 kilometers away. It's another 100% owned asset. It's very close to the San Agustin mine, which is in construction, and they probably started leaching by now. There's a paved highway that goes right through the project, and what we're seeing there on that project are northeast trending mineralized shear zones and volcanic rocks, and we see sedimentary rocks, limestones, just to the south of the property. And so again, like Tahaman, this was all very shallow drilling that was done. And what we want to do there is do confirmatory drilling and drill those high-grade feeder veins, those high-grade veins and shear zones that we see at the surface. And we have significant mineralization in the main shear zone, and we did some sampling a couple of years ago in the El Doctor vein area, and we took 90 samples, 89 samples, and we had some very strong mineralization at the surface. One sample was 110 grams per ton gold at surface. And of the samples that we took in the El Doctor zone, if you throw out that very high grade intercept, the average grade of the remaining 88 samples was 3.2 grams per ton gold. So the property has both gold and silver potential associated with zinc primarily, but we do see significant mineralization in San Lucas. So we're optimistic that when we can get in there and start doing some drilling and consolidate the land package, expand from 80 hectares to acquiring some of the surrounding claims, which will give us a significant land package, that we're very strategically located. We have excellent mineralization, excellent potential at the surface, and we're very close to an operating gold mine that's just now going into production. Next slide. And this is the point at which I'll, now having gotten done with the technical part of things, the geological description, I'll hand it over to Carlos.
Thank you very much, Mike. And we are just, almost at the end of the presentation, so I just want to mention very briefly, Monarca has been an undervalued company and is growing really well. We just present great opportunities. We are continue looking also for new acquisitions and advancing the company. So this is still a really good time to join the company and grow together with us. I really appreciate the time, and I invite you to contact us if you have any other questions. Thank you.